Welcome to viewers in the fourth session of aviation management course. And today's our topic is of this fourth session is aircraft communication. And in this session, fourth session, we will discuss radio equipment types and their use. I'm your facilitator and will be with you for another 10 to 15 minutes, about 10 slides on the subject. So when in aviation communication, we use two words, one the instrument and other is the equipment. Slightly difference in both of things. Instrument is the something by which you measure the quantity of work, and equipment is the something by which you perform some work. And the work which is performed by some equipment is measured by something, and that something is called the instruments. So this is a general management perspective of the difference between instrument and the equipment. And in aviation communication, we are mainly concerned with the aircraft, and aircraft has to communicate with many people. Aircraft has to communicate with the ATC, with the ground staff, with the passengers, with the ground engineers, ground support providers, and of course, communication for the certain equipments. So there are very variety of communication in aviation, and for all those, we will be requiring the different type of equipment and different type of instruments according to their use. So in the coming slides, we will slightly try to discuss those things. So aircraft communication, whether it's instrument or equipment, it is basically the radio based, as we have discussed in our last session, session number 3. So aircraft communication is based upon 3 things. One is the monitoring, other is the voice communication, and other is the navigation. So communication, navigation, and monitoring, these are the equipments we require, and those equipments operate on radio frequency. So that's we call them radio-based equipment. And radio-based equipment in the communication side, we have the equipment HF receiver, high frequency receiver, very high frequency receivers, and ultra high frequency transceivers. And in the monitoring, we have some equipment, airspeed indicator, altitude indicator, direction indicators, or the radars, which are monitoring, or sometimes it's called the surveillance equipment. And then we have to communicate through the navigation equipment, ADF, direction finders, non-direction beacons, VOR, ILS, and DME. These are the basic navigation equipments. So the radio-based equipment which are used in the communication may be the voice communication or text communication, and navigation and the monitoring. And radio-based equipment, as we have discussed in the session number 3, we have the transmitter, receiver, and antennas. These are the 3 basic things. So communication phase in the aircraft communication, we have the radio sets. Either we have to perform communication air to ground, or ground to air, or air to air. We have to choose, being a management aviation manager, we have to choose one appropriate equipment. It may be a HF radio transceiver, or VHF transceiver, and UHF transceiver. On the right side, you can see the picture of transceiver. It is almost all the 3 are of almost of the similar shapes. One is the mic, and this is the transceiver, means the transmitter is also inside and receiver is also inside, and then tunable frequencies, and of course the antenna. So in the various phases of flight, this diagram shows the various phases of flight. Aircraft is on ground, on the runway, taking off, climbing, cruising, then descending, coming more low, and finally it's land. So broadly, we can distribute the three phases. One is on the runway for the takeoff purpose, and one is on the runway for landing purpose. Second phase is climbing and descending, and other phase is cruising. So all the 3-4 phases of this flight, we will be requiring different type of equipment. Sometimes we have to communicate on HF radios, sometimes we have to communicate on VHF radios, and sometimes we have to communicate on the UHF radio sets to have the safe and efficient flight. So for the navigation equipment, last slide was voice communication equipment. And now something we will be having the photographs of the equipment which is required for the navigation purpose. And navigation purpose, direction finding, NDB, VR, ILS, or DMB. These are the basic equipments with the help of which pilot navigate its aircraft. And this help is radio-based, and radio-based is the communication, and communication is with the navigation equipment. On the left side, we can see the installation of VR, VHF, omnidirection radio range, which pilots use its signals to find its direction or many other things for the required for the navigation of the flight. On the right side, we can see the picture of ILS, instrument landing system, the system which brings the aircraft on the center line of the runway and give the guide slope. As we have discussed in the last session, a transmitter, receiver, and antenna. These are the equipment, VR equipment. It's a transmitter. Its receiver is installed inside the aircraft. This is ILS, transmitter, and its receiver is installed inside the aircraft. And of course, the third item is antenna. So this is the picture of the aircraft, and you can see the small things. It is written VR. Actually, this is VR antenna. Here it is written DME. This slightly things fin, you can see. This is a DME antenna. And likewise, ILS equipment antennas, lot of antennas are installed on the aircraft. Some of the antennas are related with the voice communications equipment, and some antennas relates with navigation equipment. So the third thing is the monitoring equipment. So you can see in the cockpit, lot of equipments. These are the monitoring equipments. Technically, we translate them, we call them as the instruments. As in the first slide, we told equipment. What is the difference between instrument and equipment? Equipment performs some work, and instrument give you the measurement quantity of that instruments. So here some are equipments in the cockpit, and some are the instruments which gives you the direction or speed or height of the aircraft, which is monitored by the pilot. Other main equipment are the radars. On the right side, you can see the two radar antennas. The cursor I am pointing out is the radar antenna, and this is primary radar antenna. There are two types of radars. One is primary radar and one is a secondary radar. We will discuss in the next session the working of these radars. But on the right side photographs, this indicates the primary service radar. And here you can find the little different type of antenna. This is secondary service radar, which monitors the aircraft. And in the center, you can see where I am pointing out the cursor. This is the radar scope on which you are getting the targets of the aircraft. Pinpoint the position of the aircraft, or you can monitor the position of the aircraft. On this radar scope, you get the input from the secondary radar or on the primary radar. You get the different type of indication, which is known by the radar controllers. They can identify if we are getting this signal through the secondary radar or through the primary radar. And above that, another antenna, photograph of the antenna. These are co-located. Upper antenna, this horizontal antenna, this is the secondary radar antenna, which is here, and other is the primary radar antenna, which is here. Here, both radars are single mounted antennas, but here it is double mounted radar. They have the double antennas. One is from the secondary radar and one is the primary radar. Now on the right side, you can see the picture of flight radar, well-known picture. You keep on watching on the YouTube or other medias. These aircraft targets which we are receiving, they comes from the secondary radar. So we can see only those radars, those targets on this flight radar, which signals are originated from the secondary radar system. And on the right side, this photograph, you can see a big dome. These are the antennas are inside, and this is covered by a plastic shield, non-magnetic, to save the antennas from the environmental impacts. So these are the equipments which are used for the monitoring purpose. PSR, primary service radar, and secondary service radar, two type of radars. This radar scope is technique called display, radar display. This is SSR radar, primary radar, and this is radar display. So this slide shows the working environment. This is the radar display. This is the control tower. This is area control center. And this is approach control center, various section of the air traffic control, by which the aircraft is having main communication. Voice communication is maintained, navigation is maintained, and monitoring of surveillance is maintained through radar. So this is the working environment in which the aircraft communication is being built. Again, we are back to the radar antennas. There are various type of antennas. This is the transmitter station, and this is antenna, and receiver is in the aircraft. This is also type of antenna. In the ATC, you can see the lot of antennas. The antennas are one of the very, very important part of aircraft communication. Besides the transmitter equipment and receiving equipment, antennas play a vital role. These are the ILS antennas, ground-based, at the beginning of the runway or at the end of the runway. These are the antennas installed over the control tower. These are the antennas installed for the NDB. And this is similarly other type of antennas. And all the antennas are located at the various position of the aircraft. You can see these marks. These are various type of antennas in the belly of the aircraft, in the bigger aircraft, and in the smaller aircraft. Normally, the antennas are with the tail or over the body in the shape of wire. So as usual, we will be having two quiz for this session. The first quiz is how you differentiate between instruments and equipment. Name any radio communication, radio navigation, and radio monitoring equipment or instruments. And the second quiz is name the important 6 basic aircraft instruments used in navigation. How you define the use of HF, VHF, and UHF receivers. Just go through the slides from the session 1, session 2, session 3, and session 4, and you will be listen to my conversation, and you will be able to find out the answers of these 2 quizzes. Thank you very much.